On the more technical side of things, policy implementation requires some pretty strong project management skills. In this video, I will summarize some of the current thinking and practice in project management. I will keep this high level, focusing on the specific tools that help leaders and managers keep on top of a complex policy implementation. Project management is a sophisticated field with a very specific and wide-ranging set of tools. Professional organizations like the Project Management Institute, or PMI, have greatly developed the discipline, and it is well worth for those of us who are called to manage complex projects or initiatives to learn these skills. Project management is organized into process groups. These are agglomerations of processes that belong together and achieve an overarching aim. Wysocki, who's a really great writer on this theme, identifies 5 process groups. The scoping process group, which is geared toward understanding the why and what of the project, is the first one. Through this process, the project is scoped out. We gain an understanding of what we need to achieve, of the client's aims, the requirements of the project, the circumstances and setting, and the actors involved. The planning process group is when, having understood what needs to be done, we lay out the specific activities of the project, the relationships between them, and the responsibilities for them. The launching process group includes all processes related to recruiting and organizing the team, establishing the team's operating rules, and getting the work started. The monitoring and controlling process group is focused on tracking execution and performance of the project. In this group are all processes related to answering the fundamental question, how will you know you did it? This is where you establish the performance and reporting systems, what is commonly known as M&E, monitoring and evaluation, where you do risk monitoring, as well as the processes for discovering and solving problems as they emerge. Finally, the closing process group includes all processes related to the completion of the project that seek to answer the question, how well did you do? It includes both the processes for obtaining approval from the client. In policy implementation, this is kind of complex, as often no single client exists, and also conducting some kind of audit or evaluation of the project. Now, here, I'm going to just talk about 3 tools included in the first 2 process groups that I have found to be particularly useful in my own consulting career to keep the eye on the prize, understand the goals of the organization, spearheading the initiative, and breaking down the work that needs to be done. The first tool is called the Requirements Breakdown Structure, or RBS. The RBS is particularly useful for systematically mapping the goal, objectives, and specific requirements of a project. When used in policy implementation, it aligns very closely with what we think of as the evaluative criteria the policy is trying to meet. Let's work through an example. The project, and this comes from my own work, is to implement a new passport issuance system that reduces the wait time for citizens while ensuring security and keeping costs down. So at the very top of the RBS, which is usually displayed as a tree-type chart, you find the goal. In this case, implement the new passport issuance system. The first level under the goal represents the first level objectives, sometimes referred to as the specific objectives. In this case, we have 3. Reduce wait time for citizens, ensure security of passports, and keep production costs down. We can further break down the project requirements for each specific objective. In this case, the objective of reducing wait times for citizens can be broken down into 3 additional lower-level requirements. Passports have to be delivered on the same day. Physical queues should be minimal, and wait times should be less than 2 hours. Notice that these begin to look like service standards. You go on like this, breaking requirements down until you are pretty sure you have a good understanding of what the client or clients require. Let me make a conceptual point here. In public policy and in policy implementation, a requirement must be an aspect or condition that, once satisfied, creates public value. In our example, public value is created by saving citizens time and hassle and ensuring their satisfaction, or why not, even their delight with the service their government offers them. Public value is created by ensuring that passports are given to those who have a right to them, and only to those who have a right to them, and that they are secure, tamper-resistant documents which enhance national security. And finally, value is created by making sure that the public purse, made up of resources extracted by force from the people through taxation, is used efficiently. Let's go on to the second tool. It's called the Project Overview Statement, or POS. And it is a brief executive-level document that concisely states what is to be done in the project, why it is to be done, and what public value it will provide when completed. The POS is extremely useful in both crystallizing the high-level agreement on what the project is supposed to be, and as a briefing and reference tool for the implementing team. Here's an example of a POS I developed for the passport project. The POS has 5 sections: the problem or opportunity, the goal, the objectives, the evaluative criteria, and a section on assumptions, risks, and obstacles. Notice that the document has very little text, there is no jargon, and the focus is on the business goals and objectives. The goal, for example, is set up as a SMART goal. And the POS has a clear relationship to the RBS. In fact, unless the scope of the project is very clear from the outset, I recommend that you develop the RBS before the POS. The third tool I want to introduce is the Work Breakdown Structure, or WBS, which belongs to the planning process group. The WS is a hierarchical description of all the work that must be done to complete the project as defined in the RBS. So the two structures are very closely linked. The RBS tells you what needs to be delivered in order to create value, whereas the WBS tells you what has to happen to create that value. Developing the WS is not a lonely endeavor, nor is it quick. It takes the whole team and sometimes many meetings to adequately put together a complete and robust WBS. The WBS comes together through meetings of the team that sometimes are known as the joint planning sessions, where you go through all of the requirements in the RBS and systematically map out what activities have to be accomplished in order to deliver that value. Now, you know that the WS is complete when its activities meet the following 6 criteria. Status and completion are measurable through the described activity. The activity is bounded. What I mean is that it has a start and an end date. The activity has a deliverable that's associated to it, an output of some kind, whether it be documentary or physical. Time and cost are easily estimated. And the activity duration is within acceptable limits. Now, that's more an art than a science, but generally, tasks or activities should be shorter than 2 weeks, because that is usually the scope of planning, where you can assign something to an individual person without needing to go back and check in on their work. So usually between 1 and 2 week durations are the maximum recommended. And finally, work assignments are independent. What that means is that the person or a group can fulfill the work assignment completely without having to wait for inputs or outputs from somebody else. If you need that, if you need inputs or outputs to finish, then those are 2 separate activities. WBSs are generally developed using software, although that is not absolutely necessary. But it's extremely convenient as a way to share information, perform calculations easily, and keep the whole document updated. Here's an example of a WBS I developed for a project for the government of Singapore using Microsoft Project, which is a project planning tool. As you can see, the work was broken down into phases and then more specific tasks within each phase. Microsoft Project also allows you to easily establish dependencies between tasks, so you can work out the critical path. Gantt charts, which I'm showing right now, are useful for visualizing the relationships between tasks and the overall timeline. So we've looked at 3 key tools for scoping and planning a project. I believe these are tools that translate well into the world of policy implementation. They are by no means enough to guarantee a successful outcome, of course, but it is difficult to imagine how you could possibly successfully implement a complex project without using them. To close, I really strongly recommend that people who are going to be involved in managing or leading policy implementation projects gets at least some basic, at least some rudimentary training in project management. I hope that this short introduction has whetted your appetite. Thank you.